And welcome into the Tuesday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. Hope everybody is off to a fabulous start this morning. We got a lot to get into on the program today. Our good friend Caroline Fenton will be with us at 7:30. Looking forward to that. John Glennon, Trey Avery's biggest fan, at 8 o'clock, coming up today on the program. Joe Rexrode, how we doing? What's going on?
Good. I hope he asked about him today, actually. And it's good to know that Caroline has not completely abandoned us.
It is good to know.
She's still our friend.
She is still our friend. Now let's check back in at 7:30. Maybe she won't.
Well,
she
maybe
won't actually
that's
do it.
true. Maybe she'll just tell us to go take a hike, and that'll be the last time she's ever on the air. That's possible.
It could be. It could happen. Nick Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
Good morning. Training camp is back. I am so happy that we have live football to talk about, honestly.
Kind of.
Really?
Live football?
Just kind of?
Is it live football?
Well, yeah, that's true. I'm just
Kinda.
glad that there's some relevancy back. You
Yeah.
know, you can watch for stuff.
This
watch
is how I feel about training camp. I'm very excited initially that it's back.
Yeah.
And then about 4 or 5 days into it, I'm like, all righty. Let's see if we can't get to playing some football here.
Yeah, by Friday, I'll be tired of it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. No, initially it's fun, and then the first day of pads is fun, and you find out some things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to see and to find out and to talk about in the first few days, and then once you get to you're not even at the first preseason game, and I'm with you. It's already like okay, and then you get to the preseason games, and you know the other stuff is just practices. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like. And then we all wait for real games.
Yeah. I mean, I am hoping to get back into our conversation that was just taking on a life of its own last year this time. I am hoping the preseason is a little bit more entertaining this year. Maybe some more starters playing. I think there's a chance of that with
Sounds like it.
a new offensive line and lots of new pieces on the team. I think we could see some of that. So maybe something to look forward to there in the preseason. But by and large, I mean, I feel the same way about preseason football that I do about training camp. The idea of it sounds great. And then about 3 drives into the first preseason game, you're like, oh, okay. All right, let's get this thing moving along. Let's get to the regular season.
Yeah. And it really did used to be better in the preseason.
It did.
I thought, or maybe, you know, I would actually watch entire preseason games without being forced to do so,
Yeah.
you know, like without being obligated to do so. I would watch entire preseason game. I mean, I remember like the Hall of Fame game. It's like glued to the TV.
Yeah.
Yes. And now it's like, did it happen? Who, what? I don't. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
But the real football is still awesome.
Real football is still awesome. And I will say, I mean, we're going to hear from Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan, Anthony Robinson today. And it is kind of the official beginning of training camp today. They're not going to be on the field, but Titans are going to be back in the building. Training camp's getting kicked off around the league. A lot of teams are already there. So football season technically is here, and we have made it to this point. As far as the Carthon, Brian Callahan, Anthony Robinson part of this today, Joe, as we sit here preparing for the beginning of training camp, what stands out to you about those guys, what we could hear from them today, what you want to hear from those guys as training camp is upon us now, starting, I guess, technically today?
Well, you've just added a 7th question that I would have. And I didn't really break this up, or a lot of these could go to either one, but that is a good question. What is the plan? Like, what is your plan for starters in the preseason? And, you know, maybe Brian Callahan isn't going to lay it all out for us, but it's an interesting question.
Sure.
Just in general terms, do you look at it like, you know, the second game is like the old third game, and the third game is more like a roster game, and, you know, like how do you that all that stuff's interesting. But other things that to me are, I'm sure will be asked in some form and should be asked today that I think are the most interesting questions. What is the plan for L'Jarius Sneed practicing? How confident are you in his situation, the knee? They've been asked before, but now it's training camp. So, okay. So what does that mean with him? This is a question that may be answered. You know, there could be PUP stuff today, but Tavondre Sweat, Nicholas Petit-Frere, are they healthy? Are they ready to go? Are they in shape? All that stuff. What role do you foresee for Jamal Adams? And is another safety signing on tap? I guess that could be one for Callahan, one for Carthon there. but yeah, they collaborate. So
They do.
you can ask either of them that. Also, do you need to sign another edge? That is obviously a Carthon question. I think that's really interesting. And then, will you actually split reps, Brian Callahan, between Mason Rudolph and Malik Willis? Is it like, do you act like you said competition?
Yeah.
And he's not going to sit here today and say, yeah, I'm just kidding, guys. It's Mason's QB2 and Malik's hanging around. But are they, what's the rep situation there? My guess would be that they will split that for a decent chunk of camp. But I mean, at some point, I think you also you do want to get QB2 ready. It's that's an interesting question because Mason Rudolph is a veteran. He's been in the league for a long time. He's in a new place, new offense, and all that stuff. How important is it to, like, for if you have a clear QB2 like that who fits his profile, to give them more reps in camp?
Yeah,
early, I don't think it's going to be a thing.
No, I don't think so either. I think the Snead part of this is going to be really interesting to monitor through camp. And, look, L'Jarius Sneed, as we know, played great football last year. So at the end of the day, his participation in training camp, if he gets out there and is full go by the time the season comes around, really isn't a huge deal. But I guarantee you it's something that, when he misses days, that we're going to talk about just because of the circumstances in which the Titans got him. And we've talked about this ad nauseum, the price that they paid to acquire L'Jarius Sneed was not high. And I think that shows you how the rest of the league views his knee situation. So the knee situation is going to be a story, I think, with him, not only through camp, but really through his entire tenure as a Titan. Like, I think we're going to be paying attention to L'Jarius Sneed's knee here. Again, if he's not out there the first day or two of camp, and there's a schedule with him in terms of how often he's out there, how often he's not, as long as he plays, then we're not going to really care at the end of all of it. But it is going to be really fascinating to see how often he's actually out there in training camp and whether or not he can put together some consistent practice days back to back to back.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, so if it's just random, that's always going to be a question. It's like, okay, so now he practiced yesterday, he's not practicing today. Is that a setback? Is that the plan?
Right.
I don't know that Brian Callahan's going to present, the spreadsheet to everybody if there is some sort of plan. Or are they going by feel? Or are they, I don't know.
Yeah,
these are good questions for him.
It's a good question, and I don't know. We're going to find out. I don't know how forthcoming they're going to be on all that stuff. But it's a big story with this team, and part of how good I think they can be on the defensive side of the ball is him staying healthy, right? Like, if he doesn't stay healthy and isn't available, that's a big deal for that defense. So, yeah, I think that's going to be something that we monitor throughout the year. I'm really curious to see, and you brought it up, is Sweat ready to go right now, and is Petit Frere ready to go? Those are two guys that are incredibly important. Petit Frere, they need somebody to settle into that right tackle spot and to be reliable. And hopefully Petit Frere is over the injury part of this, and we could start to see what actually, the player that he is and how Bill Callahan can help mold that player. And then on the Sweat front, is he healthy? Is he in good shape? And can you avoid a situation where you're 2 days into camp and he can't be out there like that? You need him to be out there as much as humanly possible in this camp.
Yes. I think, like with Petit Frere, it's you need the reps. I think he should be RT1, but at some point, whoever's getting the reps is going to be that guy. Sweat, it's just critical.
Yeah.
It's critical to be out there, to be in the best possible shape, just to show that he's healthy. This injury, like Kuharski said last week, it's like you go from, it's no big deal, like a couple week injury too. If he's not out there, then you're talking about more than a 2-month injury. What the heck does that mean? That's very different from what was communicated. So he's really the big question. Keith from Bowling Green on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com. Why did Snead not get his knee fixed in the offseason? Well, it's very mysterious with the knee, but I think if it was something like, just needed to be scoped, that's exactly what would have happened.
Yeah.
So I'm no doctor, surprisingly, I know, but there are like degenerative conditions and just things like that. And I mean, there's tendonitis.
Yep.
I mean, I don't, I don't know exactly what the situation is with the knee, but it's something that, as far as I know, there was no surgery last year or anything like that, but there was a lot of missed time. And then there was great football whenever he played in games. So if you get the exact same thing from the Titans, we'll still talk about it, but ultimately,
You take it.
yeah, you'll take it all day.
Yeah, I mean that's ultimately what's the most. I mean, there are certain guys, and this is not a new thing this year. There are certain guys throughout training camp, Joe, that if they miss time, I don't really care. Like if DeAndre Hopkins isn't out there every day at training camp, I don't really care. Like I know what DeAndre Hopkins is going to bring to the table. Tavondre Sweat, like I think it's a little different. Like I think when there are some weight questions, and anytime you're a rookie, like I think you need as many reps as humanly possible. So I think not all training camp absences are created equal. Like I think we knew this from basically the last 5 years. If Derrick Henry never showed up in training camp, I don't think any of us. Okay, he doesn't need to be out there. He'll be fine.
Yeah,
It's just it's a different scale.
Yeah, enjoy the sandpit. See you in September, right?
So I think that's going to be really interesting. There's one more question that I think is fascinating that I would love to hear Rand Carthon comment on, and we'll get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Taking your thoughts on Titans training camp, I guess officially beginning today. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
All right, man. We need to start talking about some of these intros, man. You're gonna do a little bit of Monica in my life. You know this song? This is such a terrible. Yeah, you like this song?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, all right.
Way better than the Beatles.
Yes, exactly. I think it's a Beatles cover, actually.
Mambo number 5.
A little bit of Monica in my life. That was a terrible Paul McCartney.
You did great.
What? Keezer. All right, we need to have a day. Is it my turn to have a day?
I think it's your turn.
All right. Well, I didn't go to the Def Leppard show. We could do a Def Leppard day, though.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, you cool with some Def Leppard?
Yeah, man.
How about a Def Leppard day, Keezer?
Geezer, make it happen. Def Leppard
I'll
Day.
send you
I
some.
have Def Leppard that I play usually, but okay.
Oh, Hysteria.
I'll grab some.
I think Hysteria was
I had
actually a good song.
I do have that one. Yeah,
It's good.
I'll send you a couple others.
Animal's good.
There you go. I'm impressed.
Pour some sugar
Don't
on it.
ever play whatever that Lou Bega. I think it's.
I think
Lou
it is who it
Bega.
is, yeah.
Please
For
don't.
not,
Please
yeah,
don't ever
but
play that
for
again.
not liking the song, you sure do know a lot about it.
I think we should lean
Oh,
into it
I
a little
know.
bit more.
It's like the Macarena, man. Believe me. I mean, if you're of a certain age and you would go to establishments and then people would start doing the freaking Macarena, yeah. I know a lot about that too, and I never want to hear it again.
Yeah, I think it's that song's a little overrated. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Really,
But what about this one?
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. D-Mace likes it. That's the reason I saved it.
Okay.
He wanted
So
it.
it's D-Mace's fault.
He wanted it for training camp.
Sparty
2
on
years
Sparty
ago.
crime.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
D-Mace. Come on, D-Mace. What are we doing here, buddy?
Josh from White House on the text line says, Joe, don't use the C word. I'm recovering from last offseason, referring to collaboration.
Okay, yeah. I was like, wait, what?
Wait a minute. What?
What word are we talking about? Yes, collaboration.
Collaboration.
Yes. Well, that'll always be a. I mean, that's a thing. They don't use it, right? They try not to use it because it was used so much.
It was used for a while.
In reference to Ray Ran.
Yeah.
Ray Ran or
I still enjoy Ramble, but that's just me.
Ramble. That's pretty good. So they don't use it, but that is what it is, right? I mean, look, ultimately, that's what you want, right? You just want good collaboration to have good results.
Joe, one more question that I would love to know, and I don't know whether or not he would fully get into it from Rand Carthon, would be, have you started or do you plan to start negotiating a new contract with DeAndre Hopkins? Would DeAndre Hopkins an extension be on the table, or is the position of the Titans let him play it out this year and then we'll revisit it in the offseason? But I would love to know if Rand Carthon would offer any insight as to whether or not there have been conversations with DeAndre Hopkins about a potential contract extension.
I like that. Yeah, I like that for sure. And I have said, and I'll stick with it, I have said that if the Titans could get something done with him, that, again, what's the price? That's what matters.
Sure.
Because, look, he was a bargain last year, a heck of a bargain. And he looks around the league and sees these young guys. And you understand where he is in his career and where they are in their career, but he's seeing these guys get these deals right now, right? And he took the best deal last year, and it still was a pretty good bargain the way he played. So it's how does he feel about it, and how do the Titans feel about him still being that guy in 2025? We don't know that he's going to be that guy in 2024. That's probably why nothing's happened. But I think you can definitely make the case to do it if you feel good about that, about where he is, and to get that still get a nice price for him and have that certainty for the next 2 seasons of Ridley and Hopkins together.
But that's the thing. Like, I know beyond this season, I know that Calvin Ridley is going to be a part of this receiving group, and that's it. It's Calvin Ridley. Boyd's on a 1-year deal. Hopkins got 1 year left. Who knows what's going to happen with Treylon Burks? I'm sure that NWI will find a way to hang around, baby. It's what he does. So maybe you feel good about him too.
Darn right.
Like, Calvin Ridley is the one guy. So, I've said this, and I still believe it. To me, I don't know that there's a scenario that's realistic for the Titans this year that doesn't involve them taking a wide receiver in the draft somewhere high next year, whether it's first round, second round, whatever the case may be. Like I still think at some point, even if you sign Hopkins to another deal and you've got Ridley under contract, like you need that next guy. You need the next young receiver coming up at some point. And if it's not going to be Burks, which there's no indication to me at this point that it's going to be, then it's going to have to be somebody else. But that doesn't mean that you can't try to re-sign Hopkins. Like to me, it all comes down to how do you think his game is going to age? And you're right. Like what's the number going to be? And the Titans' position may be, well, we feel pretty good about his game aging, but we'd love to see him do it for another year and then revisit negotiations after that. I'm like, I couldn't necessarily blame them if that's the way they wanted to approach it. But I think he showed enough last year that he's got enough left in the tank where I wouldn't totally close the door to a contract extension if I was Carthon right now.
Yeah. And maybe he does ball out. He's great. He turned 32. He's not 35. He's not 37.
Right. He's not ancient.
He turned 32. And look, going into the reason he didn't get paid last year is because he had all these injuries and he had this PED thing. And so then you can look at all that trend and say, ooh, this might fall off a cliff. Well, it didn't at all. He was great last year in a terrible offense. So you can do that. And I'm guessing that's what they're going to do, but then you might lose him. And maybe he's like, okay, well, then I'm going to go out there. Now, DeAndre Hopkins at age, he'll be about to turn 33. What's the market for him out there? I don't know. But I think that if he stacks 2 years, he stacks another year on top of last year, like last year, he'll get paid more, I think, even at 33 than he did coming in here.
I would agree.
So would he be open if the Titans basically want to give him the same deal or a little bit more for another year? I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he wouldn't be. Maybe he's like, I'm going to bet on myself and I'll play this year out and see what happens.
That's why I would love to know if there have even been preliminary conversations from Rand Carthon's perspective. And maybe he just doesn't want to get into that. I don't know. But I would love to know if that is something that the Titans have approached Hopkins about and to see where that stands, because I feel pretty good about their receiving room this year. Like when you start looking at positions that I think they've improved significantly from last year, corner is number one. I don't think there's any doubt about that corner on paper is the position in which they've improved the most. You hope the offensive line group is in there somewhere pretty high on the list. But I think certainly receiver, right? Like last year it was Hopkins, and that was pretty much it. NWI, all jokes aside, played really well for his role, but that was pretty much it. You've got Ridley now, paying him a lot of money, Boyd on a cheap contract, and he's been a very productive player in his career. Like you feel a lot better about their wide receiving core heading into this year. But again, it's this year, and then you look ahead to next year, and you're like, okay, it's Calvin Ridley. That's who you've got under contract. So it's still a long-term position that I think Rand Carthon has got to figure out exactly what the plan is going to be and where he's going at that position.
Yeah. And like you said, a drafted receiver is almost a lock.
It's going to have to be.
Burks could get opportunity this year and it could be this breakout year. And you're still talking, okay, well now if all of a sudden he goes 180 on his career, well, you're still going into year 4 with him next year. So now you're talking about his second deal coming up on the horizon. So like you have to get a young receiver in there. I don't think there's any scenario that would stop that from being a priority.
Trent on the text line says, that is one thing that worries me this year is Levis will take a step with a good wide receiver crew, and then he's going to lose 2 guys that he builds a connection with. This is from Trent on the text line. Maybe.
Who would be the 2?
It'd be Boyd and Hopkins.
That's right. Boyd signed I thought Boyd signed a 2. He signed a 1?
Yep.
Yeah, he signed the 1 for 5. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fair. Obviously Ridley's his guy. So, that's locked in. But yeah, I thought there was a lot to like about the Levis Hopkins connection last year pretty quickly. It got going. Obviously it got going right away with the Atlanta game, but there were some other really good signs in that regard. And so that's a big part of why I think it should be discussed. I think it's worth discussing. If you can get at price. Yeah, it's a gamble. It's a gamble, and maybe he does is approaching the cliff. Man, it just I don't know. After watching him last year, it doesn't seem like he's close to it.
Ron says, I'm very optimistic about this year because there's so many questions about the team. Excited to see what the offense looks like. No run first offense finally. We're going to hear that a lot heading into camp.
Oh, boy. Yep.
Titans are going to throw it 80% of the time.
I know. What if they run a lot? What if they have success running the ball? What if they run on first down a lot, but they're in 2nd and 5? Does that bother people? They could run pretty well. I would say that left side seems to me like
run left.
I'd want to explore running the football behind those guys a little bit. Is that okay? Or do they have to pass every play?
Two-headed monster now too.
Well, there's that too.
Spears, Pollard. What if both are full go? Like the best they can be. That could be a strength of your offense.
Yeah, it could be.
I'm just saying.
Mo says maybe the Titans can look into Higgins or Ag. We talked about Higgins last week.
It's interesting.
Kaharski, the idea that maybe that's the long-term answer. And if Callahan and Higgins feel about each other the way they appeared to in Cincinnati, certainly you would have to think about that as a possibility. There should be an edge for the Titans if they want to get into that. But do they want to pay him and pay Ridley?
It's a good question. You're talking $20-some-odd million per season for both. I don't know exactly where the Higgins number is going to end up. And, it's a big year from him from that regard of he needs to stay healthy and he needs to be productive. But if he is, you're talking $25 million a year, $27 million a year with the way the market's going up.
Yeah, probably
somewhere in that neighborhood. So do you want to devote $26 million per year to T. Higgins and 23 to Calvin Ridley?
And another thing about that is, I would in that setup, I would still argue Ridley is wide receiver 1, but he has to prove that this year.
Yeah, I think it's close.
It's kind of like, well, look, I think Ridley is going to be wide receiver 1, but I think Higgins is a really good wide receiver 2.
Yeah. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. What will tell us this year that Rand Carthon has done a good job? We'll get into that, discuss those possibilities coming up next. Take more of your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Some dramatic build-up from Nick Keyser for our Def Leppard day right there. Way to go, Nick.
Oh, we don't get any.
No comment.
No lyrics though. Is this one of those you have to do instrumental only? I could sing to it. I'm out of love, gotta fun again. See?
Well, I hope nobody went to the concert Saturday.
Yeah, really. Joe did a great job. No, the damn computer froze. I just had it pulled up too.
So wait a minute. So the computer froze and they erased the
vocals? No, this is just what we have saved.
I think you dropped yourself when he said "damn."
No.
Apparently now it's profanity is all fine on this program.
Not every.
We're all good. Good to know.
Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Caroline Fenton will be with us at 7:30. John Glennon at 8 o'clock. Joe, what will constitute, quote, a job well done by Rand Carthon this season? How do we determine what Rand Carthon, the work that he's put in a very, very, very busy offseason, how we grade that heading into this year? Because you can make an argument, and I think some Titans fans have already made this argument, that it was a job very well done by Rand Carthon this offseason on paper, right? I mean, we're very aggressive in free agency. You spent a lot of money. You drafted what you hope to be your franchise left tackle in the first round. You made the trade for L'Jarius Sneed. There's a lot that went on this offseason. So, I mean, we're reaching the point, and there's still, I guess, some moves that could be made here or there. There's the 53-man roster that they got to figure out. So it's not like Rand Carthon's job is done at this point, but the meat of what you've added to this team is done by this point. So how do you view what this all means for Rand Carthon and the job that he's done to this point? What we're going to view as, I guess, his letter grade, however you want to describe it, heading into this season.
Well, fair or not, to me, GMs have records just like coaches do. So the team's record this year is part of that, right? Right now, what were they, 6-11 last year?
That is
right?
correct.
Okay, so right now, Rand Carthon's a 6-11 GM. You can go back and say the setup was, faulty, or there wasn't the C word, collaboration was not followed closely enough, or whatever you want to do. But he's been 1 year's, and it is different now for him. But doesn't mean that like the first offseason didn't count, the first season didn't count. So the team's performance, but obviously you look deeper. I had you'll be happy to know I wrote something for The Athletic today about the Titans.
Oh boy!
And one of my big questions for the Titans is Rand Carthon a better gambler than John Robinson? Because I do think that two moves in particular, and we've talked about both these guys, but I think two moves in particular are really going to be impactful when it comes to judging his performance to date, and maybe give an idea of their process, his instincts, and that would be Sweat and Sneed.
Yeah.
Those are gambles. Now, Sneed is a heck of a player, like a really good player. The market kind of tells you that some people were hesitant. So is this a case of, okay, thanks, I'll take the great player, and you guys can be afraid, and I just watched him not miss a lot of practice but play great on game day. Appreciate it. And then we watch him shine on the field this year, and it's like, man, good job. But obviously if it starts to go the other way, then you have then the instincts weren't great. And then Sweat is a bigger gamble, I think. I mean, Sneed, we know, can play at a high level in this league.
Yep.
And we know that the knee thing was a thing before last season. But Sweat is quite a gamble at 38. And I think with Sweat, like, I think that the ceiling could make 38 look like a bargain.
Yep.
And I think the floor could make it look like a disaster.
Yeah, it really could.
So those two, like, imagine just this year, the impact on this year. If those two things work out, I think that's a huge boost for the defense. And I think that says something about Rand Carthon. And again, the process of making these decisions, and then also because when it comes down to it, you have all the numbers and all this data, and it's still, at times, it's just like you're going with your instinct, right?
Well,
and then if they both were to go the wrong way, I could see this defense being bad, first of all.
Well, I would throw another gamble in there too that he's taken. That's I don't think anywhere near as much as the Snead gamble and the Sweat one. But I mean, we talked about it immediately after draft night. You took J.C. Latham at 7 to play left tackle when he didn't play left tackle in college. Now, I know that Bill Callahan obviously has played a big role in this. And like if you ran Carthon and Bill Callahan tells you that's his guy and that he could play left tackle, then that's what you do. I understand all that. But we talked about it immediately after the draft, right? Fashanu went 11 to the Jets. We know that he's played left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to spend a lot of time probably comparing those two and how they look. And I said this after the draft too. I mean, the opportunity was there at 7 to take a Dunze. And if a Dunze is outstanding for Chicago this year and Latham struggles, we're going to talk about that too.
No
So it's not as much of a gamble as Sweat, not as much of a gamble as Snead with the knee, because all accounts are that you feel pretty good about J.C. Latham and what he's shown to this point. I'm just saying it is a little bit of a gamble going with that at number 7 as well when other options were on the table.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a huge deal. And I heard Willie and D-Mace talking yesterday about, the Titans drafts. They are in this spot right now, as we've discussed plenty, but they're in this spot right now because of bad drafting more than anything. Some bad signing too, but bad drafting more than anything.
Bad trade.
Yeah, bad. Lots of stuff. There's different things GMs do, and every duty at some point failed, like in a certain window of time to take you from AFC championship game to, AFC also ran.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to look at this. Yeah. So Willie was saying the 2020 class, and I didn't know this, but the 2020 class, one guy's in the league still. That's, it's only 2020. One guy is in the league still. That would be Christian Fulton, who of course has moved on. And then we know, obviously, 2021, Caleb Farley. There's one of the biggest gambles John Robinson took, and it was just a disaster. And you go through the rest of that draft. You do still, from 21, you still have Molden, and you still have Weaver.
Yep.
And you still have Radens. So actually, 21, at least, you get some guys who are kind of like, it's interesting. It's like 3 guys you're hoping could help in some way this year. I mean, Molden and Weaver will be on the field. We'll see about Radens, but that's what it comes down to. And now Traylon, you got the 2022 first round pick, not looking too good right now.
Yeah.
And last year's first round pick has to work out, and this one has to work out. So you're right. Fashanu was going to be a comparison without question. A Dunze right away in the opener. If Dunze goes for 7 and 130 from Caleb Williams and 2 touches on you, and then, Latham gives up 2 sacks. Oh, imagine the takes on that following Monday. We can get right to the takes.
Yeah, we can get right to the take. And like you said, I mean, it's the lifeblood of how you build your team is still the draft. And Rand Carthon, I think, look, on paper, I think he had a really good offseason, right? I mean, they were aggressive in free agency. They had cap space. They spent money. They brought in, a couple of the top corners, either via trade or free agency. They brought in arguably the top wide receiver on the market,
top
Calvin
center,
Ridley, top center on the market. So there's a lot to like about what they've done on paper. And I think a lot of it still is going to come down to, like, how does Latham play this year? How does Sweat play this year? And by the way, I mean, I know that in some ways everybody's acting like this is like Carthon's first year, but he did draft Will Levis,
That is right.
He did draft Will Levis. So
yes,
that's a big part of his tenure is probably going to be defined by that as well.
And the thing is, and look, I've heard, I guess some different things on like all the conversation around that, but the bottom line is, if Will Levis does become that guy, then it's an incredible bargain pick. What a brilliant pick. Jared likes to, bang on them for not, if they really loved him, for not taking what they did. Well, look, they did what they did. Ultimately, though, if they got him and he ends up being that guy, it ends up being a stroke of genius, whether you like it or not.
No doubt. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on Rand Carthon and the Tennessee Titans as camp opens up today. Coming up next, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on Charlotte. Pre-game at 6:20, first pitch at 6:35. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, Caudle Vet Clinic, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Taking your thoughts on the Tennessee Titans on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Mike from Nashville says, I think Carthon is successful if Brian Callahan belittles Stilly like Vrabel did. It's a high bar.
Man, I don't know. I don't think you can.
I don't think we're going to see it.
We're going to see a lot of that. There was just a special chemistry collaboration of belittling that
probably not
Vrabel and Stilly had. Ethan from Lawrenceburg says Jared will let us know how rain is done. That is true. He will let us know.
Right.
I'm sure we'll.
Does he still want to be out in front of the parade?
Yeah, I don't know. Got that foam finger?
All right, we'll lead the parade.
Have you built a float? Also, Joe, have you done a 53 prediction yet? I have not. I really don't want to. Do I have to? I haven't been told I have to, so I don't really want to. I enjoyed writing about like the bigger questions, and like I think at some point during camp I'll come with one. It's good. It's a good exercise, but
I think you should have about 2 or 3 of them.
The 53s are kind of like like bracketology or something like that.
Yeah.
Except to me, like way more boring, if that makes sense.
I would agree.
Yeah. So, but as we get into camp, start to get a little bit of a feel. There are some interesting questions when it comes to the bottom of the roster. It's just like there's so much focus on the bottom of the roster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas it really often doesn't matter too much on Sundays.
It does not.
So
not never. Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's interesting. It's always interesting to look at the positions and kind of compare the depth at one position to another. I think with this team, there's definitely a lack of depth at most positions. I mean, it's a roster that still needs a lot of work.
Still needs a lot of work. You brought up questions for Carthon earlier. I am interested to see, how they view safety. Are they done with Jamal Adams coming in? Do they feel like they're all set with Adams coming in there, with Bolden still being in the fold, or is there more that they could potentially look at there? I mean, there's a lot that could transpire there. I think a lot of how Carthon is viewed this year too is going to, like, how productive is Ridley? Like, Ridley needs to be a major factor in this offense. He needs to be the number one wide receiver. We've talked about this, like over 1,000 yards, I think, is beyond fair for the expectation when you're getting paid as much money as he's getting paid. And in the league, today's, 1,000 yards for a receiver used to be a big deal. I'm not saying it's no longer a big deal, but I mean, there's 17 games now. They throw the ball a ton in this league. It shouldn't be that much to ask to get 1,000 yards out of Calvin Ridley this year.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be a huge disappointment if not. I mean, I think there's a good chance both those guys do. But
should we play the same game we played last year? Who has more yards, Hopkins or Ridley, like we did with Hopkins and Burks?
Did I guess Burks? I probably
did.
God, good job. He looks. So
you got a chance to redeem yourself now.
Did we do that? But did we do that at this point, or did we do that after watching some training camp?
I think after watching some camp.
Yeah. Well, right now, I will go with Ridley. I think Ridley, and that's no sure thing. Levis and Hopkins do have chemistry. Hopkins makes plays, and he could slow down another half step this year, and I'm still throwing the ball up to him and expecting him to get it. So that's a nice thing to have. That's a nice certainty to have about a receiver. So all that said, I think Ridley has got the chase role in this offense, and I think he's going to make some big plays because Levis, it's just, to me, like that's destined to be a downfield thing, and I think they have enough around them otherwise where they're going to be able to spring him loose for some big plays. So I'll go Ridley.
I think I'm going Ridley too. I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to go Ridley. I mean, to be honest with you, if it is close, it's probably good news for the Titans, barring both of them like getting hurt or something. But if they both play close to all the games and they're close to each other in terms of production, that probably tells you that they both had a pretty good year, would be my guess. So
Yeah.
I think you would take that right now. Like, if Ridley ends up at 1,100 yards and Hopkins is at 910, I think you'd probably take that right now.
Yeah, you'd like them to combine for into the twos.
Yes.
And however that looks, if it's 15 and 5, that's surprising for the 5. The 5 probably got hurt.
Probably so.
But if one of them gets 15, that's also pretty good.
Somebody says that's 59 yards per game. It's easy. Like, well, you think so.
So easy. Yeah.
You think so.
Even great receivers have those 2-catch, 17-yard games. It happens.
Yeah. I got JD on the text line. It says, temper expectations. Don't overreact to camp, good or bad. Get a feel for the coaches and players we have. Continue to be a mediocre organization that has some occasional success. This is from JD on the text line. Did not seem to be overly excited about camp coming up.
Jeez, JD. What a downer.
Temper expectations. Don't get excited. And remind you that they're a mediocre organization.
Yeah. So I guess, you could follow another team.
You could.
You could follow the Lions. They're supposed to be really good this year.
That's what I hear.
Why don't you try that? Give that a try for a few years. See, and come back to me.
Well, and then there's the, we've made it. I don't know that we've made it 53 minutes without mentioning him because I think we have talked about him at some point. But I hope in camp this year that there's not just this overwhelming. Did you see Traylon Burks? Traylon Burks did this. Traylon Burks. I've said it. I wish the guy well. I hope he stays healthy. Hope he has a great camp. I don't really care what he does in camp until I see it on the field. Like that's the spot that I have reached with Traylon Burks. I need to see it on the field in an actual game before I really buy into anything.
So media should just refuse to report it.
I'm not saying that you refuse to report it. I'm just saying I'm not going to get swept up in Traylon Burks stuff that he does in camp until I see it on the field.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not getting swept up in it, but it'll be interesting. We'll see. If he does make plays, that's good. It's better for him to make plays and look like a difference maker than to not. Right?
For sure.
So, of course, even if he does, then is he going to take someone's job in the top 3?
I don't think so.
So you can't get swept up in it. But the 4, if he is the 4, first of all, that probably speaks well of his potential to be the 4 instead of NWI. And he will get some opportunity. But yes, it won't be like last year. Last year, really, there'd only been the 1 year. He was out of shape. He had the asthma, all that stuff. And, you think about like the Packers game as a rookie and things like that. There was some reason a year ago to be like, okay. And then last year changes it. It's like, okay, well, then you just have to.
Well, last year he had
check in when something changes.
Based on the roster, last year heading into camp, he had to be a big factor in the offense. And he just wasn't. He had the injury, and then he had the 170-yarder against the Chargers in like the second game or whatever that was, and that was pretty much it throughout the whole year. Like, it's a different situation for him this year. We know that. We've talked about the wide receivers in front of him. So it's a much different spot. I am interested, like, in terms of his approach, how he handles that this year. I think that's I'm not going to say it's going to be the most important factor because I think we've seen a lot that we need to see from Burks to this point to kind of determine what he is. But, they clearly laid out a plan if you're the Titans front office and if you're Burks looking at it of, oh, okay, well, they don't really see me as a big part of this. They've signed Ridley. They've signed Boyd. They've got Hopkins. They don't see me as a big part of it. And you can go one of two ways with that. Like, you could fold under that, or that could irritate you and you could go out and play some of your best football.
Right. You were a first round pick and all that, and now your mindset should be, I need to somehow stay in the NFL. By the way, Traylon Burks is the most stalked internet photo.
I was just about to bring this up.
Unnamed texter, Burks' most recent flex selfie looks like he put on a lot of muscle. Looks like almost too much to where it might slow him down. Okay, Jared.
Let's get Jared's
too muscular.
Have you seen his cheeks?
Hashtag cheek peek.
Just to be clear, I'm talking facial cheeks.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
I know.
Measuring cheek size.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Trey Dre, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
What's going on, guys? I have two things. I just feel like this is a playoff team. We have the talent. We have the system. I believe that we're a playoff team. Burks, again, I do believe that that injury that he got during training camp last year, I was looking up that injury. They said that injury would linger. That was one of those things that would just linger throughout the whole course of the season. I think that his injuries kind of derailed him last year. I'll hang up and hear what you guys have to say about that. But playoffs is for our TM.
Thanks for the call, Dre. Appreciate it.
So we go from this organization is so mediocre, don't follow them, to they're going to the playoffs. I like the range of pessimism. No, it's a fair point to bring up on the injury at Minnesota. He was playing incredible football for whatever that's worth, and then he had that.
Yeah.
And how much did it affect him? I'm sure some. Now he played, so when a guy's out there on Sunday, at some point it's like, okay, are you out there or are you not? But I do think that was a factor. It's worth bringing up.
I don't think there's any doubt. And, there was the play in the really scary play in Pittsburgh too, right? Where he's diving and
he's had some scary plays.
He's had some scary plays.
And not his fault.
Not his fault, but it also makes you wonder, like, okay, is this going to be the year where he just stays healthy the whole time? Like, you're starting to wonder, what does that look like too? Now, a couple of those are freak things. The Pittsburgh play,
the Philly play
got
was
his head taken
bad play.
off. It's bad play. I mean, there's nothing you can really do about that, but it does make you wonder, like, is he just all of a sudden going to stay healthy this year? It's only been 2 years. I get that, but it's been a pretty significant amount of injuries that he's dealt with through the first 2 years.
Yes. So maybe he needed to become the size of a linebacker. By the way, I have not seen this photo that is being referenced.
Yes.
We'll have to find it. I know that Jared probably has a collage ready for his show too.
615-737-1025. Our phone number. Coming up next, SEC Media Days last week. The expectation has been laid out for the Tennessee Volunteers. Is it fair? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. We'll be joined by Caroline Fenton at 7:30 from Yahoo Sports. Get her thoughts on some college football and the Titans as well. John Glennon coming up at 8 o'clock. Take your thoughts in the meantime on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe, unfortunately for you, you missed SEC Media Days last week in Dallas. I know this has been something you've been trying to get over for the last week, but the media poll has since come out, and other than what has now become, I think, an annual tradition of some people picking Vanderbilt to win the SEC every year at SEC Media Days, the order of finish is out. Georgia, you'll be surprised to know, is the favorite to win the SEC. Texas at 2. Alabama at 3, Ole Miss 4, LSU 5, Missouri 6, and Tennessee coming in at number 7, just ahead of Oklahoma. So the Vols are picked to finish 7th in the SEC. As a reminder, no divisions this year, so it's just straight up 1 through 16 or how many freaking teams are in this league now. Vols are picked to finish 7th in the SEC. Do we think that is fair? Do we think it's foul? Is it too high? Is it too low? How do we view the expectation from the talking heads down there at SEC Media Days for the Tennessee Vols?
Well, I think it's too low. So GB Joe me into oblivion, but I think it's too low. I definitely would put Georgia, Texas, and Alabama ahead of Tennessee. Now, I'm still interested in Alabama, and, they had a lot of losses. They got a lot of talent. It's the coaching transition. There are a lot of unknowns, but I would go there. I mean, Jalen Milroe last year started to turn into, I think, kind of a special player. And actually, the second half against Tennessee was one of those big moments for him after really inept first half. And by the end there, he was a problem. I'm fascinated to see what he becomes this year. I think he could be absolutely a Heisman guy. The one team that I have an issue with being in front of Tennessee, and this perfectly leads into our next guest, Caroline Fenton at 7:30. I don't see why LSU is as high as they are. I know that Brian Kelly's a good coach, okay? But he's not a miracle worker. They lost Jaden Daniels. They lost Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. They lost Mekhi Wingo and Mason Smith on the defensive line on a bad defense. And sure, they've got some transfers in, and they got Xavier Thomas from Mississippi State in at receiver. Garrett Nussmeier, I think, could be really good. But, man, that's a team that was very disappointing overall, incredibly disappointing on defense, totally changes their staff, and I just can't buy them where some people have them ranked. That's a Brian Kelly ranking, and I think that's it's a roster talent ranking. They had, like, if you go by the numbers, they have plenty of 4 and 5 stars, but I don't see that. So there's one team that I would definitely put behind Tennessee. Now, Ole Miss and Missouri, I almost would tie Tennessee. I can't split the hairs on Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee. I think that's a fight for 4th. And really what it is, it's probably a fight for the 4th playoff spot in the SEC. There could be 5.
Yeah.
But I feel pretty good about 4. So if there's a clear team that emerges between Ole Miss, Missouri, and Tennessee, I think that's your probably last playoff team. I don't think LSU is that at all.
They're interesting because their schedule sets up where they could be dangerous in the SEC. And what I mean by that is they got South Carolina. They do have Ole Miss relatively early, October the 12th. And then it's Arkansas.
Elimination game.
I don't know what Texas A&M is going to be this year. There's Bama, Florida, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma. So it's not like it's, cupcake, but
it's favorable.
It's favorable. The same thing when we went through Florida's schedule is just outrageous, right? Well, Missouri has Vanderbilt, A&M, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas. Like, it's a pretty favorable schedule for them. The problem with Tennessee is you hit Alabama and Georgia. Like, it's the same thing they've always dealt with, which is you have Alabama and Georgia on the schedule, and then you toss in Oklahoma this year as well, which could make things pretty interesting. So, I don't know how much people are looking at the schedule. Like Oklahoma, to me, I don't know exactly what they are. Like, is Oklahoma going to be able to throw a wrench in all this where they're competing for a playoff spot, or like are they able, like, Missouri plays them, LSU plays them, Tennessee plays them. Like, how those teams do against Oklahoma is probably largely going to determine where they are and how they finish this year. So, like, I think you can make the argument the schedule overall for LSU and Missouri in particular is more favorable than Tennessee's, just simply because the Tennessee has to play Alabama and Georgia.
Right. And LSU, the two big games, Ole Miss and Bama, are both at home.
Right.
And that's a big deal without question. I just don't think I don't think they're very good. Like, I think Alabama's going to go in there and blow their doors off. So I'm interested to hear Caroline's take on that. But I would say also legitimate playoff hopes in the SEC. I would include. I can't discount Oklahoma. I mean, we're going to see on the quarterback, but again, it's the same kind of thing, I guess, as LSU, which is when you have a roster that's as talented as theirs, then you can't just dismiss them. There are going to be some new players who emerge for sure. And I would go down to Texas A&M. So how many is that? That's
9.
That's 9. Is that crazy? I mean, some people would dog me for Texas A&M, but I that QB could be really good. That's what it comes down to so much, right? I mean, LSU, what's Nussmeier going to be? If you get great quarterback play at any of these places, then that elevates everything. If Nico's going to be great this year, well, I like their chances. If he's just going to be pretty good, we'll see. Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, I don't know. He's very talented, very highly regarded. We'll see. Maybe he's ready to come be a star this year.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Tennessee picked to finish 7th in the SEC. Is that fair? Is it foul? Is it too high? Is it too low? We'll take your thoughts on all that on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caroline Fenton coming up at 7:30. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Def Leppard Day. You're on the program.
See, Def Leppard is not a Muzak instrumental-only band.
We got a vote on the text line earlier for a Steve Miller Band Day. Might have to do that some point.
Yeah, we could, but I mean,
Jet Airliner.
I mean, I like some Steve Miller, but I mean, can we do some, like, I don't know, some Steely Dan?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
at some point, it's going to be your day again, so you do whatever you
All
want.
right, okay. I guess if you want to use one of your days for Steve Miller, go ahead.
We'll see.
It's fine.
We'll see. We need a Keezer day. Of course, Keezer just played Mambo number 5 the whole time, and I'll be ready to go.
Big Lou Bega guy.
It's always my day usually because I'm the one playing the music.
That is true. That is true. Taking your thoughts on the Vols, 615-737-1025. Pick to finish 7th in the SEC. Is it fair? Is it foul? Joe, is this the deepest team that Josh Heupel has had at Tennessee? It's hard to – I mean, we could ask it. Is it the best team? He did have a team that went 11-2 a couple of years ago. So
yeah, I
hard
can't
to determine that.
Can't say best. You've got to have pretty close performance for Nico, pretty close to Hendon Hooker from 2 years ago, and I just can't
It's a high bar.
sit here and tell you that's going to happen.
I'm not going to discount it, but it's a high bar to establish that. But do you think, from a roster construction standpoint, that this? I mean, he got up there last week and just was going on and on and on about the depth and how much depth that they've built. Do you agree that this is the deepest that Tennessee has been?
It seems that way. I look at the offensive line, and obviously the addition of Lance Hurd is huge. Cooper Mays, can he play a full season? That would be huge. John Campbell being able to bump out a right tackle seems like the right move for him. Okay, so you got some redshirt freshmen in the 2 deep there. You still got Dane Davis. I wonder about that area with depth. I definitely like the receiver depth. I mean, depth. There are some really talented players who probably aren't going to play a ton. How's their depth at running back? I like Cam Seldon. I think he's really talented.
Yep.
But I think that Dylan Sampson is going to be, going to have a lot of the workload. The depth up front on defense is tremendous. There is no doubt about that.
That's where I think they match up with just about anybody.
Yeah.
Is their defensive line depth. And it's not just James Pierce on the edge. Maury Thomas up the middle. Eason is up the middle. They've got
Norman Lott.
They got really good players and really good depth up the middle.
Dom Bailey, Tyree West, Joshua Josephs. Yes,
Yep.
they have got dudes. So that's a great thing. And that is one of the biggest, talked about it before, but great college football teams. Obviously, you start with offense and quarterback, but defensive line dominance, up front dominance on defense is so often a characteristic of championship teams in college football. And certainly I like their linebacker. Beasley is a big loss, but you hope, of course, that Keenan Peely is what they thought he was last year.
Yeah.
He
played with Brian Urlacher, so
yeah. Thank you. I was trying to think of a funny joke, and you brought it. Thank you. I appreciate it. But then the secondary, they've had secondary depth, but it's just like they have a lot of guys who could play, but none of them are all that great.
Yeah.
That still is just like offensive line depth. They got to avoid injuries. I think with the secondary, it's more, do they actually have 5 people they feel good about? Right? At least
there's a lot of talk about Boo Carter.
Yep.
A lot of talk about Boo Carter.
Yep. At least they have options, and that's what they need. They need him to, be a guy. Ricky Gibson, Jordan Matthews, some of these young guys. It'd be great to see more of them emerging and taking on roles. But yeah, overall, I think this is top to bottom his deepest team and could be his best team in terms of overall talent. It's just, again, it's how do you say best team when you not only Hooker, but you have first-round receiver too.
Well, that's the other part of this that I don't think there's any question, like from a depth perspective in terms of bodies that you could throw out there that have played and that you feel okay about. I think wide receivers got a lot of them. They've got a lot of people that have played and they could go 6 or 7 deep with guys that they could throw out there. How good are they? That's my question. And if you're starting trio, because we know they usually like to roll with 3 and then maybe rotate in a 4th, and we'll see if somebody gets hurt. Number 1, does that change this year? Number 2, is a starting 3 of Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, and Brazel, or if it's Thornton, whoever that third guy is.
I'm guessing Chris Brazel.
Probably Brazel. Does Mike Matthews get a role? There's a whole bunch of things there. But is that starting 3 good? Is it elite? Is that a 3 that you feel like can make plays for you left and right? Like Squirrel White's a really good player.
Yeah.
Brew McCoy is a really good player. Are either one of them like true game breakers?
I don't know, but they're both really good. I mean, you feel good about them being 2/3 of your receiving core. It just comes down to that third spot.
Yeah.
Is Brazel a difference maker? I don't want to totally judge Thornton on last year because he was hurt and stuff like that, but I don't know that I can expect some huge contribution. Who is the Ramel Keaton role? You definitely have to have a 4th guy who can mix in there. Is it him? Maybe Matthews. You have Webb and Nimrod. Those guys are solid players.
Webb's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. But does someone else emerge? But I think it's all about the third guy who's getting the snaps. I think it's going to be Brazel. I think that's the plan. How good is he?
Yeah.
He's a transfer. He was very good. He's talented, but is he going to come into this offense and click? And that's the big difference maker. The other 2, you feel really good about them. And if those 2 were with Jalen Hyatt, or Cedric Tillman, then you'd feel great about things.
Well, and that's the thing. Brew McCoy is coming off a major injury too, right? I mean, it's how quickly, all accounts are he's healthy and he's ready to go. And there's going to be technically, I think, no restriction on him in fall camp, although I think they'll probably be pretty careful with what they do with him. But he's healthy. It was a freak injury last year. So
awful.
What does that mean for him? How quickly can he get up to speed? And like I said, Squirrel White and Brew McCoy, I feel really good about. But receiver as a whole, everybody wants to blame Joe Milton last year, and there was some blame to go around for Joe Milton. Receiver was a very disappointing position for them last year, and they have to find a way to be much better this year at that spot.
Right. Receiver and offensive line. Mays is hurt. They didn't have an ideal left tackle. I mentioned Jalen Hyatt and Hendon Hooker, also a first-round right tackle from 2022, by the way. So they didn't replace them as well as you want to replace them. Ethan from Lawrenceburg and Caleb both saying the same thing. Much faster in the secondary.
Yes.
And that's great. You want more talent, athleticism, speed, but it is not just that. You got to be technically sound. You got to be able to play well and play together. And so how young do you want to be?
There's some inexperience back there. And I'm not saying you can't win that way, because sometimes raw athleticism is enough. But the SEC is traditionally not a league where you see a lot of young guys come in at corner or in the secondary and just thrive right away, unless you're, Caleb Downs or somebody.
Yeah. I mean, some
who, by the way, is at Ohio State.
But some I get Vols fans who are like, I'm sick of watching these like older veteran guys who can't run.
Yes, they needed to be
it.
faster back there.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
No doubt.
615-737-1025. We'll be joined by Caroline Fenton coming up next. We'll get her thoughts on Tennessee, her thoughts on some college football and the Titans as well. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. And we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our good friend Caroline Fenton from Yahoo Sports. Caroline, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. It's great to hear your voices this morning.
It is great
I'm
to hear
doing
your
good.
voice.
How are you?
We are awesome. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. How's the new gig going?
It's good. It's good. It's kind of nice to start in a time where there's not a ton going on, so I've been able to get acclimated, but Olympics coverage starts end of this week going into next week, so I'm super excited about that.
Oh, yeah. Getting right in there. I like it. Caroline, we were just talking about SEC Media Days last week, which you were there for. It's good to see
I
that.
was. Yes, Joe, you missed it.
Yeah, he's
I
really
know.
upset.
Oh God, I know. It was.
I know he had FOMO
sad.
all week long.
Big time FOMO.
Seriously.
Tennessee picked to finish 7th in the SEC. Now, again, no divisions this year, so it's a little bit different. Do you think that is fair? Do you think it is foul? How do you view where the Vols were picked to finish?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, can we just acknowledge that nobody should give a crap about the projected order of finish?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Glad we could put that out there because 2 people picked Vanderbilt to win the SEC. If that just shows you how seriously people actually take these ballots. So let's just put that out there. I think it's fair if you break it down a little bit because kind of the vibe that I got last week at SEC Media Days is everyone views Georgia and Texas really at the top of the SEC. And everyone views this kind of first tier as Georgia, Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss. I don't think anyone would have expected Tennessee to finish above any of those teams. Maybe you shouldn't have. I understand, like, Vol fans, they're going to, Vol fan. And then in the second tier, everyone views Missouri, LSU, Tennessee, and Oklahoma kind of as the second tier of teams that could be giant killers, could make things really interesting throughout the season, and if all things go right, could be seen as college football playoff teams in a 12-team playoff. And I don't know if it's public, like the actual point differential for teams, but just to add context, Georgia had 3,330. Fair. Everyone views Georgia as the best team in the SEC. Texas had over 3,000. Alabama just behind at 2,900. Ole Miss just behind at 2,800. And then you see LSU at 5 with 2,322. Missouri with 2,240. Tennessee with 2,200. So it's this group of teams that although Tennessee's at 7, they're right up there with that second group of LSU, Missouri, and Oklahoma right behind Tennessee as this group of really good teams that have high ceilings but have a lot of question marks. So while 7th in the SEC sounds like, oh my gosh, the disrespect. Remember, there's no divisions. Tennessee in this scenario would be picked to finish 3rd in the East. And Tennessee's kind of right up there with all of those teams that can be good, but do have a lot of question marks. So let's be honest, like Tennessee is a first-year quarterback. I think we all expect him to be good, but those are fair question marks to have, especially when you lose 10 defensive backs in the offseason.
Okay, here are my tiers. Georgia on its own tier. My second tier is Texas and Alabama. Then I have Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee as a tier. And then I go LSU, Oklahoma, Texas A&M. So all of which is to say, I think your Tigers might kind of be cheeks, Caroline. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Like I think that might be overrated. Like you think I'm onto something?
I think they're severely overrated in this poll, frankly, because I think there's reason to be optimistic that the defense is going to be better. 1, how can it be worse? 2, they've improved the coaching staff, at least on paper. But I expect the defense to be better. How much better? And I also expect the offense to take a step back, which is fair. Whenever you have a first-year starting quarterback, let's be fair. Garrett Nussmeier's been there for 3 years. You lose the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. You lose 2 first-round receivers, and your defense was historically bad. Like, I don't think it's fair to expect them to finish 5th in this conference.
I thought you were going to yell at me.
I thought you were too. I thought these gloves were going to come off.
I know. But
No, you know what? The people that you love, you've got to criticize them the most.
That's true. That is true.
They could be good, though.
They could be. We'll see. On the Ole Miss front, I mean, there's a lot of hype about them. I get it, and they're very active in the transfer portal. That Jackson Dart's back there. Do you buy that they are a legitimate, not only playoff contender, but do you think that they, if you had to pick today, that they make the college football playoff this year?
I do.
Okay.
I do think that they make the college football playoff this year for a few reasons. Jackson Dart is coming back for his third year. Continuity at quarterback, continuity at coordinator, continuity at head coach. And then you also look at what they bring back. I think that Ole Miss has one of the best receiver groups in the SEC without even considering what they added in the transfer portal. Caden Priestcorn at tight end and Trey Harris at the wide receiver position. And then you look at the areas that Lane Kiffin was able to address in the transfer portal. What was the number one thing that Lane Kiffin said was the reason why they couldn't compete with the Georgias and the Alabamas? Well, they weren't big or physical enough in the trenches. So what did they do? They went out and added Walter Nolan, the number one defensive player in the transfer portal. They went out and added Princely Umamielen, who's one of the best pass rushers in the SEC East this past year. So I think that Ole Miss returns a lot of the talent. They lose Quinshon Judkins, which is going to be a hit, but they add Logan Diggs in the transfer portal, who I think was underrated for LSU last year just because Jaden Daniels was the focal point of the run game. So they return talent and they add even more talent to positions of need. So I think Ole Miss is in the 12-team playoff.
Okay, Carolina, I want to talk Titans, but I want to tell us a little bit more about your job at Yahoo. So you are going to be doing everything? Are you going to be focused on certain things more than others?
So I'll be focused mainly on college football. Okay. That's going to be my number one baby in the fall, but I'm also going to be touching on a little bit of everything. NFL, Olympics, obviously this summer, but mostly college football, a little bit of MLB as well.
So not only are you abandoning us, you're abandoning the Titans. Is that right? Your Titans takes. You can. This is a safe space for your Titans takes, though. Here, you will always have a safe space for Titans takes here. So
I would never abandon my Titans takes entirely, because when you go out and make moves like signing Jamal Adams in the offseason, it's a tough habit to break, truly. But I'm still going to be doing a little bit of NFL, but I'm never going to give up my Titans takes entirely.
What excites you most about camp opening this week? If you had one question today, Carthon and Callahan are there, what would it be?
That's a good question. And I'm a little rusty, so bear with me. And also let me apologize for my voice, going through it a little bit. I would say my number one question would be, do you feel like you did enough? Like, do you feel like you did enough this offseason to enough positions? If you want to talk about corner and wide receiver, I think you can feel pretty good about those positions. I think that those positions are improved. I think if you ask, do you feel like you did enough at cornerback, that Rand Carthon can get up there and truthfully and honestly say, yes, I do think that we did. Did you do enough at the offensive line position? Did you do enough at the inside linebacker position? Did you do enough overall as a whole to address positions of need, to be able to fairly and accurately evaluate Will Levis in this season? That's my question.
All right, I have one more college football one for you. Your Heisman favorite heading into this year. A lot of Carson Beck love out there.
Yeah.
I mean, people have thrown Jalen Milroe into the conversation. There's a lot of different options you could go with it. If you had to pick one player for your Heisman favorite heading into the year, who would it be?
Well, I mean, if I have to pick one player, it's going to be Carson Beck, because I think Georgia's going to be the best team in the country, and quarterback for the best team in the country is a fair pick. But if you want to get a little bit juicy, and this isn't just a hot take, this is a guy that I don't think is getting enough Heisman talk, I think it's Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart is really good. Jackson Dart is a really good passer. Jackson Dart is incredibly mobile. And I think that Jackson Dart is going to be quarterbacking a playoff team that could potentially go 11-1 or 10-2 this year. I think Carson Beck's going to get a lot of love. Quinn Ewers is, of course, going to get a lot of love. But don't overlook Jackson Dart.
You are big on Ole Miss. That's one of my takeaways from today.
I like it.
I think that Ole Miss should be considered a playoff team. And look, I understand Lane Kiffin has never won the big one, the big one. Beating LSU at home, whenever you give up 600 yards of offense, that's a big win. That was a really important win for Ole Miss last year. But I wouldn't necessarily consider that the quote-unquote big one, because it seems like in every big game, Lane Kiffin loses his mind. Every year when he played Nick Saban, he would try to get too cute with it. He would spend too much time on Twitter, and he would really hurt the team. This year, there's no Nick Saban. This year, I think Lane Kiffin has learned his lesson. So I need to see Lane Kiffin win a big, big game on their schedule, but I think they have enough talent.
Get the popcorn ready.
He did just torch
Get your
Feinbaum, though.
popcorn ready.
He can torch
did
Feinbaum
absolutely
like few
eviscerate
could ever
Feinbaum.
dream of.
It was
What did he
awesome.
say?
Oh, you gotta
man, just
look that
it
up.
It's,
Yeah, look
it's
that one up.
hilarious. It's really good stuff.
I think Lane Kiffin just cannot help himself.
He can't.
He's always got to put his foot in his mouth.
He does. He does. Caroline, it's great to
What
hear
a guy.
from you. Appreciate so much you taking time to be with us this morning, and we will talk to you soon.
Wait, Caroline, are you still
Thank you.
moderating? Are you still moderating Jared versus Joe moving forward?
Well, have we done a Jared versus Joe?
What's
Jared's
that?
been on vacation.
Yeah, they all keep going on vacation.
Well, I know. I'm saying now that we get back into the groove, are you don't? I heard you were
I would love
possibly going to
to.
moderate. Yeah,
I would
you'd
love to.
Okay, and you're freed from like ever thinking that like Jared should get a pat on the head and a win. You know what I mean? Like now
I have never thought that Jared should get a pat on the head and a win. Maybe you just have bad takes, Joe.
You ever thought of that?
Well, I do have some bad takes.
There we go.
That's fair.
Thank you, Caroline. We appreciate it.
Appreciate y'all.
Caroline Fenton, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode from Yahoo Sports. Good to hear from her.
They got to be really bad to be worse than Jared's, but I do have some bad takes.
You do. Big on Ole Miss.
Big on Ole Miss.
Big on Ole Miss.
And agrees with the LSU. I mean, it's just I don't know. I think there's a little bit of reputation, program, head coach factoring in too heavily in their ranking. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I don't see it.
We'll see. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode is coming up next. We'll take your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Oh, this is so frustrating.
It's kind of ugly, though.
It is time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joe Rexrode's rant of the day. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I had a recent really good meeting with a young man who's wants to go into journalism. He's heading to MTSU. Had a really good conversation, and he kept calling me sir. And so finally I'm like, hey, just call me Joe, okay? And he said, well, what about Mr. Joe? You know, I appreciate the respect, I do, but this gave me a flashback to something that actually bothered me when my kids were younger. Like when I was a kid, we called people Mr. and Mrs. last name.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, and I first noticed it as a parent of young children, we've gone to, oh, hi, Mr. Joe. Hi, Mr. Robby. Hi, Mr. Nick. Why did we make this change? First of all, it gives me a flashback to like SNL, and this is dating me, but if anybody remembers old SNL, the little skit with Mr. Bill, little claymation. Yeah, I know. Look it up. It's a little claymation character, and like he gets stomped all the time. It's like, Mr. Bill, oh no! It's like Mr. Bill. Actually, Michael Scott once made a joke about it in the office, and nobody got it.
Your SNL vault goes deep, baby.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Bill. But like, why did we change this to where we call people Mr. first name? I grew up on military bases. So, you know, yes, sir, Captain Smith. Yes, sir, Major Brown. Yes, sir, Colonel Kofer. I'm trying to imagine going back in time. Hi there, Captain Jack. What's up, Major Tom? Good to see you, Colonel Dwayne. Like, how weird would that have been? GTFO on that. And like, we have a bunch of the same names, right? Like it's like when you have last names, that's easier to distinguish.
Yes.
You know, oh, yeah, we're going bowling with Mr. John. Okay, Mr. John Jenkins or Mr. John Simpson? Which Mr. John are you going bowling with? Someone explained to me when we went to the Mr. and Mrs. first name as opposed to last name. What is wrong? Last names help distinguish people.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot more comfortable calling someone Mr. I mean, again, I'm fine once you get to a certain age. Just call me by my name.
Yeah.
But I just don't understand why we went to this. And this is another thing that it's just the erosion of society that I've seen take place during my lifetime. And I'd like to go back.
Are you upset when people call you sir? Does that make you uncomfortable?
Well, I'm not upset, but it's, I don't think I should be called sir. Maybe I haven't earned sir. Hey, Dennis said he loved Mr. Bell. Thank you, Dennis. I knew I could count on Dennis. Oh no! Someone look it up. We gotta get a Mr. Bill clip. It's great. He gets smashed by like a foot or something. Oh no, Mr. Bill! But anyway, yeah, I just see someone said Mr. Joe.
Your
boomer is showing. Very good. That's fine. That's fine. That's a lot of the theme here. But I'm Gen X. We were supposed to be slackers and just call everybody dude and bro, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just when you get older, things like this bother you. But yeah, it was just when I was a little kid. It was always like, oh yeah, say hi to Mr. Joe. I'm like, no, just call me Mr. Rexrode.
Tyler
last name
says, Joe, the Mr. first name is a Southern thing.
No,
it's been like that down here for as long as I can remember. I don't think you get that in other areas of the country.
Well,
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, now Tyler, that may be true long term, but I can tell you that for me, again, when our kids were younger, we lived in Michigan, and it was rampant. And then I went to, okay, I guess that's what we do. Okay, well, go with Mr. Larry. Mr. Larry will take you to the bathroom.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I was a kid, which was mid to late 90s, early 2000s, that it was Mr. or Mrs. last name. Like that's what it was. Like I feel like that was pretty commonplace.
So my oldest, shout out to Jack, junior year, Michigan State coming up. So he was born in 2004, about to turn 20, actually, about to turn 20 in 6 days, actually. So we're talking 05, 06 or whatever when I first noticed this phenomenon. So I am assuming that it's around 20 years old. We need to go back. We need to
we
go
must
back.
reverse course. Jason in Clarksville says Mr. Rexrode. We could really get after it there.
That's fine.
Or if if Mr. Stapp is in charge, it could be Mr. Roxroad.
Yeah, that's right.
Great. And say, if you need anything, just call me, and I'll be glad to give you a hand, okay?
There it is. There it is. Hey, that's Mr. Bell right there. Hey, everybody. Who wants to go see a concert with Mr. Scott? I know Mr. Scott's band sucks, but let's go to that concert. Keith says the whole world.
Oh, Mr. Scott's having a great day, by the way.
Keith
Thank you for listening.
He says the whole world is going to hell in a handbasket, and Rex is complaining about good manners. Hey, man, I'm just saying.
Well, here's a good question from Brock on the text line. What is the appropriate age or years of relationship where you change from Mr. last name to the first name? This is from Brock on the text line.
Well, look.
At what point do you just go, yeah, just call me Joe?
Okay, well, we've got Brennan in here helping, right, on Fridays, my middle child. Big Joe rolled in. I said, Brennan, do you remember Mr. Dubin? That's what I said.
Yeah, that is what you said.
I said, do you remember Mr. Dubin? Did you say thank you to Mr. Keyser for helping, show you how to, do some things back here, right?
Joe, I'll
That's
be
what
honest. I think I don't know. I don't know if it's just an age thing, but it does feel weird that I have a brother that's around your son's age, and I hear that, and I'm like, oh, God, why is he calling me Mr. Keyser?
So he actually called you that?
No. But you,
I was gonna say,
whenever
no
you're like,
way.
hey,
wait a minute, he actually
why
did
don't you say thank you to Mr. Keyser and Mr. Colin Kadoof? I'm like, what? Why? But no, I like it. The respect makes sense. I will teach my kids that one day too, but it's a little bit strange that some people don't recognize it now. It's very, very odd.
Thanks, Mr. Nick. See you next week, Mr. Nick.
Thanks, Mr. Bill Wannabe.
Yeah, to me, I think the answer, Brock, is just until you're an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose. Okay, so the kid I was talking to, awesome kid, by the way. Shout out to Gary. Very respectful. Going to college. I don't know how old he is. I think going to college. That's why I said, just call me Joe.
Yeah.
Call me Joe. Like, you're going to college. So you can go to college at age 17 and not be technically an adult. I think how about when you graduate from high school? How about that?
Okay.
Graduate from high school, and then you can start, and then you call adults by their.
You just call whatever you want.
Yeah. What's up, bro? Yeah, like what does Brennan call people around here?
Probably that.
Yeah. Bro.
That's the new thing nowadays.
I hope he might be listening in the car right now. I hope so.
I mean, there are still people from my childhood that I just don't call by their first name, right? I mean, I think it's just, for me, it's always weird. Like, of
Sure.
certain people, I'm 30, almost 32 years old, and I'm still not calling people by their first name.
That's a good point too, for sure. Like friends of my parents or grandparents, I still call them Mr., Mrs., whatever their name is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just a feel thing.
Yeah, it is a feel thing. Katie's blowing me up that I'm wrong about this, but I don't have time to get it. Hey, Katie, you always threaten to call in and do the Rex Rant. The Rex Rant's open for you. Call in. You know the number. The Rex Rant, she's saying the other day, she's ranting on me, Nick. Nick, we're hanging out. Katie's ranting about my driving. Call in.
I'm sure this.
You got something to say? And then we'll go watch Mr. Scott's crappy band play crappy music.
We also talked about
August
doing
13th.
we also mentioned doing the Choice is Yours wife edition, Robbie.
I kind of like that.
As an idea.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. We're going to have them call in.
Oh, I kind of like that.
Yeah, we're going to that is going to happen at some point.
That could get
It actually would
dangerous.
have been good. I wish we had this idea earlier. That's a great mid-dead summer thing,
really
as
is.
opposed to football. But I think we got to make it happen.
That could get dangerous.
It could.
615-737-1025, our phone number.
Katie will swear at
615-737-1025. John Glennon from the Nashville Post coming up next. We'll get into the Tennessee Titans and all things Titans with John. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game.
Expand on, because it sucks to lose, Gentry.
Trey, ever need to show you anything?
Did you have another thought, or no? I'm just curious.
Well,
It sucks. Losing, awful.
One of my favorite clips of all time. One of the greatest moments, probably the greatest moment from last Titan season.
Stop with that amazing quote. I have a Trey Avery question for you.
Let's welcome in one of our favorite human beings on the earth, John Glennon, to the program on our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com of the National Post. John, good morning. How are you?
I am swell, fellas. Thanks for the nice welcome. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I just hope you know how much joy you've provided us for about the last 8 months. I blame Rexrode.
Who knew? Who knew? I'm glad it's worked for you.
I will give you $5 if you ask a Trey Avery question today.
Only 5? Glennon, I think you could extort more money out of him than that.
I think you can work on that a little bit, Joe. Come on now.
How about some mead? A pint of mead?
Oh, here we go.
Mead?
It's gout friendly.
Now you're moving in the right direction.
Now we're talking.
A meet and greet, if you will.
Here we go.
John Glennon's on his A game right before camp. I love to see it. So, John, we were having this discussion earlier. Obviously, it's been a very busy offseason for the Tennessee Titans and for Rand Carthon. How do you go about determining the job that Rand Carthon has done this offseason in terms of how we're going to end up viewing the moves that he's made? There's a lot that goes into it. Obviously, they've drafted Sweat and Latham. You brought in Calvin Ridley. They traded for L'Jarius Sneed. What do you make on the surface of the offseason that Rand Carthon had, and what do you think is the biggest key in terms of just determining how that's going to play out for the Titans?
Well, yeah, I mean, on paper, I think it was an outstanding season for Rand Carthon and the Titans. I mean, he had the advantage of going into the offseason with a ton of money under the cap, and he used it, I think, very wisely. He addressed the most pressing needs on this team, which were certainly, wide receiver, defensive back, were the top two, and certainly addressed left tackle with the draft as well. So, I mean, it looks like a great off season right now. But obviously we're going to have to see results. I don't know if you're going to have to say, okay, there has to be a 5-win improvement or anything like that. I think it's probably more of an incremental situation this year. I think if you can see at some of those really needy positions from last year, at left tackle, at wide receiver, at defensive back, if you can see definite improvement there, if you can see Will Levis taking steps forward, making progress in his second year, even though he's under a new coach, new OC, new quarterbacks coach, and if you improve your win total, say, let's say two or three wins this year, I think you can say that's a pretty solid step for the Titans in 2024.
See, some Titans fans would say, I really cannot handle like 8 and 9, and mediocre, which of course would, like you said, John, I mean, that is an improvement from the last 2 years, but I feel like Levis is I feel like if this team goes 5-12, but let's say, like the defense is bad. I mean, I think there's definitely a way that this defense could be bad, especially if some of these key acquisitions don't work out. But Levis is really good. Would that not be would that not be the most important thing, that they find out that he can play and they sort of have a direction charted after this year?
I think that's probably the most important individual position that you see improvement in, because, I mean, it's interesting. Will Levis, there are so many different viewpoints on Will Levis after the guy played, 9 games. There's some people who think he's already a bust, that, the ceiling has already been reached, that there's not much more talent. And there's a whole another crop of people who say, there's this great untapped potential. And certainly I think he should be better simply because, better wide receiver core, it appears to be a much better offensive line already. So he should be better. And yeah, I think that's the number one concern. But I don't think that can be the only way that you can judge the Titans as being better. I mean, when you spend the amount of money that the Titans did, and you bring in some top name guys, and Calvin Ridley, L'Jarius Sneed, and some of the lesser name free agents as well. Well, certainly Lloyd Cushenberry as well. I don't think you can brush those aside and say, okay, as long as Will Levis is better, then the Titans are better. You need to see some solid improvement in different areas as well.
John, if you had to identify one spot on the offensive side that concerns you the most, one spot on the defensive side that concerns you the most heading into camp, what would it be?
I think on offense, it probably has to be right tackle. There's certainly a lot of questions that have to be answered there. I think you have to say Nicholas Petit-Frere is the leading candidate for that. But, what are you basing that on? He was kind of so-so as a rookie starting there a couple of years ago. Last year was pretty much a wash between injuries and suspension. So, there's clearly a lot of potential in Nicholas Petit-Frere. But, they didn't get to see him the entire offseason because he's still rehabbing the injury. So there's questions there. We don't know for sure who the right guard starter is going to be as well. But I think certainly in terms of protecting a passer, that right tackle spot on offense is the biggest question mark for me. On defense, it's probably, kind of maybe a combination of a few positions right up the gut. And I'll go from defensive line. The Titans have lost a number of guys in there, Tier Tart, Kyle Pico. We know Danico Autry played at times inside last year. So our guys like Tavondre Sweat and Sebastian Joseph Day, are they enough to fill that hole? Then you go right behind them. And certainly there's some uncertainty and questions at that inside linebacker spot as well. You have to pencil in Kenneth Murray as a starter because they paid big money for him. But is he going to be the answer? He wasn't necessarily the answer with the Chargers. And then you've got two rotational guys maybe next to him in Gibbons and Gray, who eventually stands out there. And then I think, you go one step beyond right in the middle again in the center of the field. Do the Titans have enough at safety with Hooker, with Molden, and even with Jamal Adams now? Do they still have that kind of playmaker, that rangy kind of guy back there that you'd ideally like to have to create a few more turnovers? So to me, right up the gut, the Titans have answers, or questions rather, on all three levels.
John, your observations of this coaching staff, because obviously Brian Callahan is very different. We opened with some sweet Vrabel sounds, the sweet sounds of Mike Vrabel. A little different with Brian Callahan, a little different feel when he's talking to us. But in terms of watching them on the field, I know we're about to watch a whole lot more of it out there here in the next few weeks. What would you say stand out to you as the differences?
Probably tough to say after watching some off season, but I would say, maybe the number one that stood out during the off season was I just didn't see the sort of the station to station approach, I guess you would call it, that maybe Mike Vrabel had. Mike Vrabel, knew a lot about a lot and wanted to move to the different positions to get a look at players, to kind of add his expertise at all different spots. I don't think, we're going to see that much from Brian Callahan, and I don't think we saw it as much in the offseason. I think, he's more clearly an offensive-minded guy. He's going to spend most of his time on that side of the ball, and certainly plenty with Will Levis. And I think he's going to turn more of that defense over to Denard Wilson. I think that's the way he wants it. That's the way he prefers to coach, and I think that's a little bit different than Mike Vrabel's was. Just and we heard players talk about this too. I think maybe there's just a little bit of a more, I hesitate to say relaxed, but that's the word that comes to mind. More of a relaxed vibe with Brian Callahan there, as opposed to Mike Vrabel. And again, we've heard two or three players discuss that. They feel a little bit more free, a little more able to express themselves a little bit better. Does that mean it's a better Titans team? We don't know that yet. Does that mean Brian Callahan's a better coach than Mike Vrabel? We certainly don't know that, because Mike Vrabel certainly put up some good numbers for a lot of years here. But it's definitely a different vibe, I'll say that.
Well, John, it's going to be a lot of fun. We've made it to training camp. Appreciate so much you taking time to be with us this morning, and we will talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, guys.
John Glennon from the Nashville Post, our guest on Robby and Rexrode.
Bye, Mr. John. See, now this is going to become an epidemic.
You got any mead for him?
I might. We always talk about going to get some mead. Or there's a meadery in town in East Nashville. We didn't bring up in the rant Miss Amy. I mean, now, how does Miss Amy not come up in the rant?
That's a big oversight by us. Big oversight.
Is there any other owner in the National Football League who's referred to that? I'd love it. The Cowboys called him Mr. Jerry. Mr. Jerry.
It's Mr. Jerry.
Hi, Mr. Jerry. Is there any other owner that gets called formal title first name?
Does anybody call Kraft Mr. Bob? I don't think so.
We could go through the whole league like this and have a heck of a fun time.
615
A 9-minute run.
737-1025, our phone number.
Speaking of the devil,
I could potentially have some really good news for Titans fans, and we'll get into that coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. The Game Summer Ticket Tour is back, presented by Green River Whiskey. Join our own Joe Dubin at MJ Sports Bar and Grill at 1253 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro this Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. as he gives away tickets to upcoming concerts in Nashville, including Bush, Train, Dierks Bentley, and more. Also get signed up for the grand prize, tickets to our Preds home game, Sounds game, and to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/tour. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol volume varies by product. Please drink responsibly. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home in the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Thanks to John Glennon for being with us in the last segment. Joe, I have some potentially great news for Titans fans. Are we ready for it?
Yeah,
okay.
Ready for it.
The official Jared Stillman expectation was laid out yesterday. Now, again, this is not a prediction, so it's probably not as great of news as I could have for you, because if it was an official prediction, then I would really feel good about it. But this is the expectation that Jared Stillman has laid out for the Tennessee Titans yesterday. 5-12. 5-12, the expectation for the Tennessee Titans. And as we know, there have been plenty of Jared Stillman examples to look at that have gone the opposite way. The George Costanza, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not that far away removed. We're coming up on a year anniversary of the, oh my God, Kenny Pickett, MVP, Pittsburgh Steeler Super Bowl trip take that he had a year ago. So if you're a Titans fan,
amazing,
and you hear that Stilly's expectation for the Titans is 5-12, should you be rejoicing in the streets today? Should this mean that great things are coming for the Tennessee Titans this year? Your thoughts?
Well, okay, so first of all, so he has an expectation.
He breaks it down into categories. So there's the will win.
Yeah, and I was here when he broke that down
yesterday.
So, but how is that not a prediction?
I'm just telling you, he says it's the expectation.
So like after camp, he'll actually give a prediction.
I guess so.
By then, he'll actually flip it to 12. The bad news is he's going to flip. He'll be like, oh my God, Traylon Burks! Ah, he's so strong. He's huge. And
can't tackle the guy.
He'll go 12-5. But yeah, we were arguing about this yesterday, and it's like, of course, it's just like, oh, how could you possibly think that? How could you possibly think they could win another game than that? I'm like, well, you go through the schedule. I don't remember how he broke it down, but he broke it down with like, will lose, will win,
should lose, should win, toss up.
Like toss up.
Yeah.
Again, my prediction after I went through their schedule, and that was a prediction. I think it's okay to say prediction. I can change it, right?
Sure.
But was 8-9. And of course, yesterday I'm sitting here because I was just trying to get my power cord. I just wanted to get my power cord and leave, and he wouldn't let me leave. And of course, he's just like, how could you? How could you possibly? It's like, I mean, it is possible. I mean, we don't know at all what this defense will be. I feel pretty good about the offense being better, and I don't know how much better, but should be better.
Yes.
Maybe a lot better. And if that's the case, then I guess the defensive range doesn't matter as much, but the defense is just so hard to predict at all. Like the Bears game, sure. Toss-up game. Is that not a toss-up game? His point was, they'll be like a 6-point underdog. Okay, great. I mean, I don't know what Vegas is going to have, but they're playing a rookie quarterback and a team that's been bad, and I think that's a toss-up game. Call me crazy.
I would agree. I mean,
is the Jets a no way? No. That's not a no way win. Is the Packers at home? No way. I wouldn't say that.
No way. Huh.
Dolphins, Colts.
You're going 13-4.
Well, I mean, I'm going through this and like games that I just forget about it. I'm going to pretty much say that about Buffalo. I guess I'll say that about the Lions. Oh boy, wouldn't that be funny? I mean, they're going to beat the Patriots. I'm just going through these, Chargers, they probably should lose, but I don't know what the Chargers are going to be. They'll beat the Vikings at home. They can't beat the Jags at home. They got the Commanders on the road. Is it impossible to beat the Bengals at home?
No.
The Colts either place?
It's the NFL, man. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like all these expectations we have are based on what we think of these other teams that we don't look at nearly as closely as we do the Titans, and there is going to be some big misconceptions that happens every year in the NFL.
Now, I will say Jared's expectation for the Titans kind of lines up with what the national outside expectation for the Titans is, which is they're not going to be very good.
That's true.
At 5-12.
Is that all he's doing? He's embracing PFF, and he's just going to go with ESPN's predictions?
I think on the surface, without knowing the injuries and all that other stuff's going to take place, I think there's a lot of toss-up games. Like, there's a lot. Like Chicago, I would count as one. You know, the Jets. I mean, the Jets that early on, maybe it's too early for the Jets to be totally dysfunctional by week 2. I don't know. But, I mean, Indy both times I think is a toss-up. Jacksonville both times is a toss-up. Certainly the Chargers is a toss-up. You know, I mean, they'll go up and down the list here. Minnesota, I think toss-up is probably friendly. The Titans should win that game, right? Washington, Titans should win that game.
Yeah, there definitely are not a lot of, oh, that's a lock, but of course not. I mean,
well, even Buffalo, everybody says Buffalo. Like, again, I guess I'm going to keep harping on this until the season starts, but like, I would not say that it's just an absolute certainty that they're losing to Buffalo on the road. I have no idea how good Buffalo is going to be this year.
Yeah.
I know they've got Josh Allen, and I know it's on the road. So those are two things that work heavily against the Titans. I get it. I would not pick the Titans to beat Buffalo. I'm just saying I don't count Buffalo as like a lock. I would say on the road at Houston is much more of a lock to lose for the Titans than at Buffalo, based on the roster of the two teams at this point.
Much? I don't know if I'd put the word much, but I'd put more. Yeah, I think that's fair. Those are probably the 3 most grim games of Lions, Bills, Texans on the road. But yeah, you're a Bills hater. You're on the record, and hey, we'll see how that works out for you. Someone says the Athletic has the Titans ranked 24 and an expected record of 6-11, mainly because they jettisoned Henry. I did not read that piece. That might be Austin Mock, who does all the models. I'll have to check that out. But 24 is actually a little bit optimistic compared to some people.
Yeah. Tyler says, we also get to see again why his Sam Darnold take is dumb in real time all season. Also, you're not even allowed to like Henry anymore. Apparently still liking him and being happy for him if he does well is the same as wearing a Ravens outfit to work every day. This is from Tyler on the text line.
As is well known on this program, I have Jared muted on Twitter. However, for whatever reason, when 102.5 and 106.3 the game account, like, quote tweeted him, his tweet showed up, and I just want to now it's going back. I'm trying to find it. He said that it is in all caps, quote, it is all caps, sacrilegious to root for the Ravens if you're a Titans fan. That's sacrilegious. There's no I in it. Dude, you can't all caps a word and then misspell it. You can misspell a word. Everybody does it.
Sure.
But you can't put it in all caps and misspell it.
Yeah.
But yes, I didn't hear it, but he jumped on the take of the Ravens-Titans thing, which, again, I just think it's okay if you're okay rooting for Derrick Henry. I'm just trying to provide a safe space for you.
Yeah. Michael in Madison says, fun fact, the Tennessee Titans, not including the Oilers, have never lost to the Detroit Lions. Is that true? I mean, they don't play each other.
I don't know. Yeah, they probably only play like 3 or 4 times. Yeah. But yeah, I could see that. I do remember that Thanksgiving game when they won by like 58-3 or something. Vintage Lions football.
Yeah. Caleb says, I think 5 to 8 wins is the expectation. Anything short or over that is extreme. This is from Caleb on the text line. Do we think 9 wins is extreme for this team?
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think it's extreme. I think that's definitely drifting into optimistic. I think I don't even rule out 10. I'm not going to rule out 10.
But like, don't most people agree that the Titans are significantly better than they were a year ago, based on the additions that they've made?
I would think so. I would hope so. If you really looked at what they've done, certainly there's a lot of questions. Well, most of them could not work out, and they wouldn't be. But yes, quote unquote, on paper, they've made a lot of improvements.
Well, they're 6-11 last year. It's not like they were 2-15.
Right.
So, like, to get to 8 or 9 wins is really not that much of an improvement for the Titans. Like, that's what kind of mystifies me about this whole thing.
Right.
Like, people are acting like they're trying to go from 2 wins to 12. They're going from, in this scenario, 6 wins
Six
to
to
9.
8. Yeah, 6 to 9, 6
Yeah.
to 8, whatever. Yeah. I mean, one of the problems this year is definitely the transition in the NFC. They go from the crappy AFC South to the suddenly pretty good NFC South to the NFC North. That is one issue.
For sure. I'm just saying, like, people are acting like 9 wins is like out of the realm of possibility for this group. I'm like, guys, they won 6 a year ago and they're awful.
9 wins is really not out of the realm of possibility of like anyone. Like, you could talk yourself into the Patriots or Raiders doing it.
The
I don't
Texans
think either
just
will,
did it a year ago
when we all picked them to win 4.
Exactly.
Yes.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll take more of your thoughts on the Titans coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Def Leppard Day here on the program. A classic here. I feel like Rexrode's probably not a big fan of this song.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask if we could not play this one.
Jeez. Do you like any of the actual hit songs for anybody?
I
You
love
always go deep
Animal. Animal's a hip song from Photograph, Animal, Rock of Ages, all hits. I love all of them. This one, I don't know, man. Hysteria, I love that song. So yes, but also, how about Armageddon It? How about we mix it up with a little Die Hard the Hunter? You know, I mean, I could have requested some of these songs.
Your
but I
day,
forgot
you could
to.
have put a list down.
This is my day. Oh, this is your day.
You said Def Leppard.
I think this should count as your day. Not
Okay.
my day.
Cap. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Kyle. Kyle, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, guys. Good to talk to you.
What's up, Kyle?
I don't get all the 4-win, 5-win predictions for the Titans. We won 6 with a god-awful line. We had one receiver. We had a rookie quarterback out there. I know our defense has some holes. We're not done. We're still going to fix some of those, I hope. But I can't understand that. And I got another thing too. Why can't people pull for Derrick Henry? You can separate Derrick and the Ravens. I will never pull for the Ravens. I can't stand them, just like the Colts. But I can pull for Derrick, like I was telling you the other day, that if it's a Hall of Fame player, you can pull for them for another team because they did great stuff for you. They won games for you. A.J. Brown, you can still pull for him. You know, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Come on now.
Thanks
I
for the
just
call,
don't
Kyle.
understand where it comes.
I'm with you, Kyle.
Can you leave me on hold so I can hear?
Sure. And then Kaiser immediately hung up
Did
on
you just hang up on him?
Kaiser.
My goodness.
Did you hang up on him?
Did you hang up on him, Mr. Nick?
Yes, he could still hear us earlier because it had his radio on.
Well,
He just asked you to leave him on hold. Kaiser just sniping people.
especially when he agreed with my take that you can if you'd like to root for Derrick Henry. It's totally reasonable, and you're not a bad fan who must turn in your fan card per Kuharski. Good call, Kyle. As far as the whole and what he said, and what you just said, you're right. 6 wins, and they did all these improvements. I do agree though that you go through the schedule,
Sure.
and you can be wrong on that too, right? We all will. There will be some terrible, misconceptions on team. Like there will be some teams that are way better, way worse than we think they are right now. So it'll make it all moot. But that's what we do this time of year. But go through the schedule. I go through the schedule, and I think I feel pretty good about like 6 or 7. I feel pretty good about 6 or 7. And then it's like, okay,
Can you get a couple?
Because if you can get to 9, then then you're hanging around for that 7th spot.
We got a lot of controversy on the text line, both
Okay.
on our actual text line and my personal text line. Keith, Tyler, and our fearless leader, Chase McCabe, all wondering, is Kyle actually just Adam in Portland? Saying that there's, Keith says, did Adam in Portland change his name to Kyle? Tyler says, how is this dude not Adam from Portland? They sound identical. This is from Tyler. Is Kyle actually Adam from Portland?
I don't think he sounded like Adam from Portland. Do you?
I mean, I'd never thought about it until everybody started texting about it. But I mean, that's like 4 text messages we got all at one time about Kyle. That's not Kyle. That's Adam in Portland.
Huh?
Conspiracy on the text line.
I don't buy it. No, I can do Adam Portland. Hey guys, how you doing? No, I get it. Yeah. So anyway, man. So that's like my Adam in Portland.
It sucks.
Yeah. So listen, man. So here's the deal. Man. Okay. That's my Adam in Portland. That wasn't. No, I don't think Kyle and Adam that sound that much alike. That's weird. But the fact
Adam,
that
we might need to hear from you.
that it came all at once, maybe there must have been a sentence in there that sounded like it. But yeah, I don't think so. I think we got 2 separate bits now.
Okay.
Now, Heidi from Dixon still waiting on a return call. I thought you were going to say the controversy.
Years.
Yeah, yeah. The parole. Can you call with an ankle bracelet on? Can you call us? I think so. I thought you were going to say Michael and Madison, who says starting to think Joe just doesn't like any good music and actively hates it instead. In parentheses, Creed. Yeah, Creed sucks. I like plenty of good music. We're just jamming some Def Leppard and have a good time today.
We had somebody text in earlier. It's like, why do you attack Scott Stapp so much?
What's the deal with all these
attacks
on Scott
Stapp?
Rexrode.
God, he knows how to get to the studio. He's going to show up one day and I'm gonna
Slap you.
I'm gonna have to get a restraining order.
Yeah. Nate says Kyle ain't Adam for Portland. Adam's got more of a twang. There we go.
I don't think they sound that much alike.
Okay.
Personally.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe we're again heading into territory we talked about last year. Last year, the conversation around the Titans was nationally, everybody thinks they're going to suck. Locally, everybody thought they might be pretty good, and they weren't very good. Now, that doesn't mean that that's how it's going to play out every year. But, I mean, it's a similar – I wouldn't say that everybody locally thinks they're going to be good, but I do think it is a little bit mystifying. When I see the Titans connected to 3 wins, 4 wins, 5 wins, it does make me scratch my head a little bit. You know, we called out Jared for 5-12 being the expectation. Ian, the voice of reason on the program, says 4-13, his expectation.
Well, I mean, I can make the case. I mean, I'm not. Last year, I was more mystified, I think, and I was wrong. So maybe that's why I'm just making myself be less mystified this time. This team is a lot harder to, in my opinion, to judge and predict than last year's team. New head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator.
There's a lot of unknown.
And some additions who could be really good, but I think is like John Glenn said earlier, the offensive line a lot better. Is it? That's the idea. I don't know that it is.
I don't know that it is either. I'd have a hard time imagining it being much worse, but I don't know that it's a lot better. But if it is, I mean, that's a major step. I think part of where we talked about this a lot, but I think the genesis of where some of the conversation around the Titans kind of mystifies me a little bit is I saw enough from Levis last year that makes me think he's not completely terrible, which I think a lot of people around the league just think he's awful. And I think that's where some of the disconnect could be. I didn't see enough from Will Levis last year to make me convinced that he's some franchise quarterback. And maybe 5 weeks into the season this year, it becomes pretty obvious that he's just not very good. I don't know. But I saw enough moments from him last year to where I look at the roster that they've put together, particularly with their starters, and I say he'd have to be pretty darn bad for them to win 4 games. Like, he'd have to be really bad for them to win 4 games this year. That's where the disconnect comes in for me.
Yeah. And if the offensive line is just better, just decent, then I think Levis is going to be pretty good and maybe better, but I think he's going to be pretty good. And look, I think we've talked about all the intangibles with him and everything, and all the personality stuff was I think so wrong with a lot of people. I mean, I think he's gone above and beyond this offseason. I mean, the Cabo trip, that's cool. And that was his idea. And also a lot of his money too, by the way, in that. And then they've been doing this extra work here too. I mean, that's above and beyond just like a quarterback who's studying the offense and everything like that. I mean, he's really going to all lengths to try to be great and to try to drag this team along. You got to like that. Maybe he won't live up to it in performance, but I think you should be, as a Titans fan, excited about like all the things that he's doing to try to get there.
Kyle from Shelbyville is way back in. Everyone thinks that I'm Adam in Portland, even my own family. It's from Kyle.
No kidding. I don't know. I have to listen to that again. I didn't think that.
Somebody says this is not an expectation. It's a lock. Jared Steelmom is off his meds again. Steelmom. Haven't heard that one.
Jared Steelmom.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
615-737-1025.
Mr. Steelmom.
Our phone number. We'll get more of your thoughts on the Titans coming up next. Got some tickets to give away as well. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Got some tickets to give away to see Hootie and the Blowfish at Bridgestone Arena this Saturday. Be caller number 5, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win tickets to Hootie and the Blowfish at Bridgestone Arena this Saturday. You a Hootie fan?
No. I know I know. They're fine. Like, I don't have an issue with Hootie and the Blowfish. I just never really got too much into their music. Is that okay? I'm not ripping them. I respect them.
Way better than the Beatles.
Oh, good God. Okay. You just want to continue to
I'll triple
espouse
down.
your horrific take.
Just triple down on it. Keep going.
God, embarrassing. All right. So I do think Ron keeps asking this question. Sorry, Ron, on the text line. I'll get to it.
We're trying to get to it.
Yeah, I'm getting into it, Ron. Actually, it's a good one. I think this is one of the interesting questions that the preseason should help us with. He says, are you guys really comfortable with the Titans' backup QB? I just feel like he'll get some playing time with the way Levis plays. You think he can lead us to a couple wins if he needs to? I'll tell you, I said it back in the spring. I wasn't especially impressed. But again, we're talking spring, just throwing the ball around and a little bit of 7-on-7, a little bit of team stuff. I think it's an important preseason for him. And as I said earlier in the show, that is a question too, is like, of course you're going to frame it the way Brian Callahan framed it. That's what you would expect. You want competition anyway. You want everybody to think they're in a competition. So you're framing it as a Mason Rudolph, Malik Willis competition. They signed Mason Rudolph to be QB2. I mean, this is a guy who has started in the NFL. There's a difference for sure between those two.
Yes.
I am interested to see how they do the reps with them as they get into some of the team stuff. Does Rudolph get a significant amount more? Are they actually trying to split it at the beginning between those two when they get in there and try to see and make it a competition? I will say he needs to play better. He needs to play better than what I saw in the spring. But when they signed him, I've seen him play some pretty decent football in this league on Sundays before.
Yeah. Especially when he wasn't getting his head bashed in by Myles Garrett.
There is that.
No, he has come in and has won football games. Do I feel great about Mason Rudolph starting for any significant length of time if Will Levis went down? No. I mean, I don't want Mason Rudolph playing 7 games for me this year. Could you live with it if he had to come in for a game or two or finish a game?
I mean, that's always the question.
Yeah, I think you could.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
I think you would be okay if that's the case.
Yeah, like if the defense isn't cheeks, then
right.
Yeah, it's possible. Texter, I'm starting to think Joe doesn't actually listen to music. LOL. I love music. I'm obsessed with music. All I talk about. I would do this show entirely about music if I could, and I could talk about the bands I love all day long.
You can.
I love so many bands.
You're a music aficionado.
I am. I've seen a million bands in this town alone.
What about August 13th? Want to Creed? We still have to determine.
If you can find a new level of hallucinogen.
Well, I'd probably find one.
Yeah, you are an Aaron Rodgers fan.
I feel like it would be criminal if concert day comes around for Creed and we're not doing a show or actively involved as a show.
What day of the week is that?
Somehow. I believe it's a Tuesday.
I actually might be going out of town that day. That'd be a real shame.
Not what I want.
Where are they playing?
I think it's Ascend, right?
Is it? See, I love Ascend.
I think so.
God, dang.
I mean, it's setting up pretty nicely for us to be able to do a show there. We got to get this figured out.
All right. We'll work on it. I mean, believe me, though, there will be embarrassing, like, paint my stomach behavior if it happens. Okay.
Mr. Stapp. Hey, Mr. Scott.
Mr. Stapp, will you come on the show?
Play higher for me. It's really good, Mr. Scott.
Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, Anthony Robertson speaking today. What do we want to hear today? What are some questions that we have for the Titans as training camp officially opens today?
The backup QB reps would be one. The plan with L'Jarius Sneed would be one. T'Vondre Sweat, Nicholas Petit-Frere, are they ready to go? T'Vondre Sweat, how's his conditioning? What role do you see for Jamal Adams? Do you need to sign another safety? Do you need to sign another edge? For Callahan, what is a little bit more on the starters of the preseason? What's your philosophy? How do you view games 1, 2, and 3?
Yep.
You brought up the Hopkins extension. I like that one. Any thought about possibly locking him up for another year?
Do we think that Carthon will go into any sort of depth to that question they've asked about?
No, I think he'll do. I mean, J-Rob did the same thing. Like, I don't negotiate in public. I think Carthon has said the same thing. I mean, if I was a GM, I'd also do that too. So he probably wouldn't answer it.
Probably not, but it's worth asking. Probably not.
So here, guys, I'm going to tell you. Now, here's exactly the negotiations with
would Trey Avery possibly get an extension? Hold on, Brand. Can I interrupt?
Brand,
please?
stop talking.
Can I interject, please?
I don't know that Glennon was a big fan of us doing that earlier in the show.
He didn't.
He did not seem to be overly excited about it.
He did not laugh as much as I was hoping.
He really appreciate you guys bringing that up.
It's going to be merciless this year, John. I just want you to know, buddy.
I mean, I hope
listening.
like heck Trey Avery makes a team. I mean, I hope he has a great camp. The more Trey Avery talk we can have, the better off we'll all be.
I mean, he has to, for the sake of all of us, he has to at some point ask a Trey Avery.
Do we have that clip
right?
again? Do we have the clip? Nick, find the clip. Let's play it again.
Nick says no. We got time. We got time, Nick.
Don't worry, we got plenty of time. You'll find it.
Yeah, John didn't. He didn't take too kindly to that. But hey, man, when you create a legendary moment like that, okay, Jason and Dover, what are your top 5 bands? All right, that's really hard. But Beatles,
oh god,
Zeppelin, Radiohead, U2, and Pearl Jam.
No Blink-182. Just missed out on the top 5.
Yeah, they're somewhere in the. Ooh,
Hinder.
Dead Milkmen, Eric. That's right, baby. I've talked Dead Milkmen before. Actually, you know what? Let me throw in Pixies. Instead of but what about the Red Hots? See? I love music.
Anthony says, if Joe does a full hour about music, I'll be Mr. Listening to something else. It's from Anthony on the text line.
Mr. Anthony, why are you so mean? Joel
Are you going to refer to Brian Callahan and first off, are you going to go Callie?
Mr.
Today?
Callie?
You could go Mr. Callie.
Mr. Callie.
Mr. Callie, excuse me. I have a question for you.
Mr. Rand.
Let's just set up this. It's not going to be the final time we do it because it will live on forever in our show. But let's just set up again the nice John Glennon, Trey Avery moment in Mike Vrabel's tirade last year.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry.
Trey Avery need to show you anything?
Did you have another thought or no? I'm just curious.
John, shut up.
It sucks. Losing. Awful.
Trey.
Pardon me, Mike.
Trey Avery need to show you anything?
Did you?
Fantastic. That's just so good.
Yes,
Logan.
Gonna get anything this year to match that, man.
I love them both. I love them both. It's so tough. So apparently Stilly went crazy about Brinker not talking today.
I guess.
So here's the thing. Regardless of the hierarchy and all that stuff, isn't Brinker kind of like Steve Underwood in a way? I know it's different. It's a different setup.
Kind of, yeah.
No one ever wanted him to talk at a presser.
No.
So I disagree with that. And I did not hear exactly what Jared said. But the things he's in charge of, I mean, Rand is the GM. He is the acquirer of players. Anthony Robinson is his number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could make the case for like just Mr. Callie and Mr. Rand today.
Yeah,
but I don't think that Brinker has to talk every time there's something. I mean, it'd be nice to hear from Mr. Chad sometimes, but yeah.
This really has your Rand has taken on a life of its own on the text line. It's been beautiful. Gentry from Nashville, who's not Gentry.
The other
Estes,
Gentry
says, "I hate that clip. Gives me anxiety." Gentry on the text. Gentry.
Mike, could you stop opening a vein publicly and answer a totally meaningless question, please?
Glennon's going to be all over you today.
He's not listening. The great thing about Glennon is he does not listen to Sports Talk Radio, so you can actually rip him at your leisure. It's fantastic.
Played that clip back and really appreciate you guys putting that back out there, man. Really glad that's bringing you a lot of joy.
God, Kaharski's going to be insufferable.
Oh, man.
We just need to stay focused. Actually, another question for those guys today is why Mr. Arden hates Mr. Paul.
Do you guys have any insight as to why Arden Key hates Paul Kuharski?
Kuharski.
You guys, yes. Have you guys spoken with Arden Key about why he hates Paul Kuharsk?
I really, really need all players be available this week. If this screws us over, this whole thing, and like convinces like Callahan to like lock down access, and we have to blame Kuharsk.
Yeah,
it's his fault, Mr. Paul. It's your fault. But really, really need to hear from Arden this week.
Rand, you know why Arden Key and Jeffrey Simmons hate Paul Kuharsk? Have you determined that this offseason?
Stilly? Is Stilly going today? If he's going today,
let's figure it out.
That's one for him to ask.
That does it for us today here on the program. We'll be back full reaction to the beginning of Titans training camp tomorrow on the show. Chase and Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.